Hi, I'm Ray Pointer,
And I'm Will Pointer.
and together we're the founders of ResearchWise AI. And today we're going to be talking about Gemini. So, Will, what is Gemini?
Thank you, Ray. Gemini is Google's answer to ChatGPT. So I'm going to assume that everyone has heard now of ChatGPT, which is was created by OpenAI. Google is their response, the current iteration of their generative AI.
And what are the key differences then between Gemini and ChatGPT?
The underlying technology is similar, but there are a few key differences to keep in mind. Possibly the most obvious is that Gemini exists within the Google ecosphere. And therefore, it has been more geared towards working with Google's products and prioritizing how it can integrate with the different Google products in a similar way to that Copilot has been focusing on integration in the Microsoft ecosphere, whereby OpenAI is an independent AI company and therefore focuses on a more generic approach to integrations. Secondly, Google's approach seems to be to allow for much larger context windows and update their model much more frequently than OpenAI. So, what does this mean? With a modern ChatGPT conversation, you might be able to upload a few 10,000 words as part of the conversation for it to analyze. So, a good chunk of a book, you might even get away with a short book for it to summarize. But Google Gemini can currently accept uploads of more than 10 times the size of ChatGPT. So therefore, if you've got a lot of transcripts, a lot of interviews, or a lot of comments for a product, it may be able to summarize all of them in one go rather than having to batch them. Additionally, as we know, Google is the one of the repositories of the most data in the world. And what we see is Google is updating the knowledge cutoff of Gemini much more frequently than OpenAI is updating the cutoff for ChatGPT.
But you're saying there's a lot of similarities as well. So I can type in a prompt, it will go away, it'll answer the question. It might hallucinate. It might give me different answers on different days to the same question. So
Absolutely.
similar.
So it's still underlying using a LLM, this multi-language model, although these days they're more multimodal, so they will move between, it's still language, but it will move between text and video and image and audio more seamlessly. And you're absolutely right about the hallucinations. And in testing the integrations of Gemini, I was trying to use it to write a slide deck about our company. And it did some things quite well. It clearly read parts of the website in the past. And when I fed it certain information, it could work with it. But equally, once it didn't know information, it would just happily make it up. So I asked it to write a slide on the founders. And apparently, we didn't found the company, but two fictional people founded the company because it couldn't find the information on us. And so it will very happily wander into hallucinations still.
Probably Jobs and Wozniak.
Quite possibly, yes. I'm not sure. Yeah, I should have written down the names it came up with.
So one of the things that we do with ChatGPT is we write programs and they call the APIs in ChatGPT. Can we do that with Gemini?
Although Gemini itself can call APIs, so therefore it could call a calendar or a search engine or a database. The native Gemini interface that you would work with, the most basic one, the one that most people are most familiar with ChatGPT, um, that can't do function calls. And they're equivalent to the OpenAI version that can, which is called custom GPTs, which is Notebook LM. That still also can't do API calls. The only way to get Gemini to do API calls that I can see today is to be able to write code. If you can write your own code, either using TypeScript, Python, or those sort of things, using perhaps some of the libraries like LangChain, then you can employ Gemini to be calling other APIs like booking appointments, making phone calls, or whatever it be.
So you've mentioned Notebook LM, so perhaps we'll have a bit more about that. But also, what are the other interesting things that people might be tempted to try with Gemini?
Hmm. I've been running a few different experiments trying to see where it works well and where it differs from Copilot, ChatGPT, and the others. And the one that really stood out to me was transcribing voice, audio files, video files into text and then summarizing it. I actually fed it our two previous podcast episodes and asked it for summaries, and I can say that it was a pretty good summary of what we discussed. And I thought this may be really quite applicable to market research, where we've got audio recordings of interviews between researchers and customers, and then they can be summarized. And then if you summarize hundreds of these, they can be analyzed en masse.
Recently, we used Notebook LM to create a podcast, and we've shared that with people. Just tell us a little bit how you caused that to happen. And I must say, we don't stand behind everything that's in that podcast. Hallucinations and overstatements are certainly part of it. But I think it's interesting about how you did that.
Absolutely. So it was, it's got a lot of exciting potential. I would say as a tool, it's not quite there yet. This is also true of OpenAI's custom GPTs and so many of these tools. We can see the kernel of potential, but it's not quite there yet. In the case of that podcast recording that we put out, I gave
Notebook LM.
our 12 answers to, or 20 answers, sorry, to the SMR questions around AI and our two previous podcast recordings, and then asked it to write effectively. It would always generate a podcast between two AIs, but it asks you what topic, and all I said was I want it to discuss the topic of risk. It went away for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then came back and sent me a 17-minute file. I didn't know what to expect at all. 17-minute file, which effectively is a completely AI generated podcast between two AI voices discussing research-wise AI and the topic of risk. And yes, I'd like to qualify that I did not request that the AI be so sycophantic. It's just very upbeat and a little bit too needs to be more critical of us, I think, in places.
Yeah, we there was a discussion on LinkedIn recently about whether or not these LLMs are like a smart intern, but lazy in that they don't always read all the data. And somebody else chimed in with a comment that they are too happy to please. And I think we see that coming through as well. But some fascinating thoughts about, for example, if you took some real interviews with customers, you could create an interface, I suspect, for clients where they could then talk to these clients. Or if we've created personas, and there are some agencies out there at the moment who are creating customer personas for their clients to type in questions to, this technology is either there or it's nearly there for making that a talking interface, I think.
I completely agree. What I was seeing from that, from a previous perspective, a past of being a manager of a lot of people, is being able to feed
Notebook LM.
the company standards, company docs on how the company operates, but also how the product we're developing, all the documentation in which often there can be a vast amount if you can pull it out to the right platforms. And then I just imagine being able to hand that to a new starter who can have a conversation with that AI, whether it, vocally or written, and really tease out answers to things that they can get quickly. And of course, if they can't get the answer from the AI, they can still ask the colleague next to them, their manager, and so forth. But that extra level of being able to get an answer quickly, have it in their pocket, even listen to a summary of their emails on their commute to work in a sort of podcast format or something. I mean, it wouldn't be to my taste necessarily, although a bullet point summary might be. But I think there are all different learners out there, and this just shows that now the AI tools are helping us to get content into all different formats effortlessly.
I'm just going to add a curious little thought as well about Google, and it's trying to help a lot, even if you don't necessarily want it. So, before, in preparation for discussion, Will sent me some notes. He sent me them as a Google Doc. When I opened them up, it says questions about Gemini. Up jumps Gemini on my computer and offers to help with the answers. And so that integration is potentially great, but I do want to feel like I'm running the show.
Yes, I completely understand. On top of that as well, I would a word of caution to everyone here is I would never trust a single one of these AIs to talk about themselves accurately. Not only one, they could have it's clear company bias, and we're already hearing that some of the answers out of some of these big ones are changing in the wake of the US elections and the new approach on DEI and things. Um, but equally, they were also trained prior to their existence. So if you ask Gemini today, what is Gemini capable of? It will only answer on what was Gemini capable of a year ago or so. And actually, that's a really big problem with the AI world because it's changing much, much faster than that. And if you ask ChatGPT what you're capable of, it will often be answering about stuff that's out of date. So I would always, a word of caution about, yes, using Gemini to summarize Gemini could cause problems.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. I think we're going to keep playing with Gemini and we're going to keep expecting it to get better.
Thank you, Ray.